Hello and welcome to another Word from the Street and me, David Ford. So recently in one of our conversations on co-production, we were talking about the 5 key elements that we need to consider when bringing a group together. And one of those key elements was diversity. And I think that's really important for us to think about and talk about when we think about groups, the way that they work and the function, wherever those groups may be. So I guess the first thing is to think about what is diversity. A quick Google search will give you an answer. Here's a quote here. The practice or quality of including or involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientations, etc., etc. And I would add, as one of those etceteras, experience. Because we're all human beings, we're all individual, and we all have different experiences, and from those experiences we get learning and wisdom, isn't it? So it's bringing as much of that together in the context of whatever the group might be or might be doing. So why is it important that we're as diverse as possible when we bring groups together, especially when you've got groups that are making decisions around policies that impact others? When we're thinking about setting up or the delivery of services that help and benefit others. So it's really important that we're as diverse as possible because, and here's the because thing, at ExpertLink we believe and know to be true that if you want to create change, if you want to create something, you need to come from a place of honesty, however tough that might be. And sometimes it is, because sometimes we hear things or recognise things that we're not necessarily comfortable with. But it's important that we get all of that wisdom and through that honesty. And we bring it together when we're making decisions and stuff. And I know this to be true, absolutely, especially when you go into the recovery world. If you go into the recovery world and speak to anybody who's gone through recovery, they'll tell you they have to be really honest to create the change, i.e. move out of addiction and to live a fulfilled life. One of the ways that I talk about this when we talk about diversity is thinking about a jigsaw. So if you've got a 1,000-piece jigsaw, but you've only got half the pieces, but you have to scrabble the rest on the table to sort of resemble some kind of picture, and you have to guess the rest, and then you want to make a decision based on that. So it's a guess more than anything else. That isn't the right place to be making decisions, especially if the decisions you're going to be making are impacting on other human beings, on other people. So when we talk about diversity, we can often be led down the other paths, tokenism, for example. But one of the paths we might get led down is, and I'm not sure if my language is correct here, but one of the paths we might get led down is elitism. Let me explain that. So one of the things that I sometimes hear about, and I'm not saying this is necessarily true, although I have experienced this in the past myself, is that the further you go up that hierarchal systems that we have, the further you go the pecking order. So often the systems that we work within are hierarchical, organisations are hierarchical, and the further you go up there, the more elitist it becomes, the less diverse that it becomes. And so if it's less diverse, is it then, you may question or ask, is it then less informed? Does it have the wisdom that it needs when it comes down to policy making and decision making and things like that, especially when they're impacting other people? Are they less informed than what they should be? You might also argue that perhaps if we go to that honesty thing, are they perhaps less honest? And that isn't necessarily them aiming to be dishonest, absolutely not, but perhaps they're less honest in the fact that they don't have all of that wisdom and stuff sat around in their groups and the tables or whatever it might be when they're making those decisions that affect other people. Surely if we were going to be truly honest and truly diverse, we would have lived experience sat at that table, but would enable that lived experience to sit at that table, surely. And I guess if we were to take an example of this, One example might be in governance, when we're talking about organisations. If you were to go to the top of the hierarchical tree, sits a board of trustees. Often what I hear is that when it comes to boards of trustees of charities, often they are not as diverse as they could be. They often don't have that lived experience on them. Now, I'm not saying that that is necessarily true of your charity, absolutely not, but it's what I hear and what I have experienced in my journey over a period of time, and what I hear from others that perhaps are less diverse. So there are a couple of things around this that can help us when it comes to that. Is maybe understanding why that happens a little bit, but also there's something about recognizing there is stuff out there to help us. So the first thing is, let's do that help bit. Charity guidelines. There are a set of charity guidelines out there that talk about diversity, and I'm going to quote some of this stuff for you here. So charity guidelines. Addressing equality, diversity and inclusion helps a board to make better decisions. Well, surely, yes, that's true, isn't it? It surely would do. This requires commitment, but it means that a charity is more likely to stay relevant to those it serves and to deliver its public benefit. Of course it requires commitment. Actually, it's a real challenge, and maybe we'll talk about that challenge in a second. But it does make sure that the charity stays relevant, and that's absolutely important, isn't it? Recognising and countering any imbalances in power, perspectives and opportunities in the charity and in the attitudes and behaviours of trustees, staffs and volunteers helps to make sure that a charity achieves its aims. And we want the charities to achieve their aims, don't we? If they achieve their aims, we're creating a better world, aren't we? It goes on to say, all trustees have the same responsibility for a charity, so they must have equal opportunity to contribute to decision making. That's about tokenism, isn't it? If we're going to be a diverse board, let's not just be diverse in a tokenistic way, or let's do it in a way that's meaningful. Let's make sure that everybody is equally sat around the table and has equal opportunity to input into the discussions, the debates and the decision making, however that might need to be. But we need to make sure that the language that we use and the way that we communicate on a board works for everybody, not just the few. Board diversity in the widest sense is important because it creates more balanced decision making. Absolutely. Where appropriate, this includes and centres the communities and the people the charity serves. This includes and centres the communities and people the charity serves. Absolutely should be. The charity should be about people, the beneficiaries of that charity. And surely the beneficiaries of that charity should be represented, i.e. lived experience, at that decision, at the very top of that hierarchical system, or the charity is working within, at board level and helping to make those decisions. This increases the charity's legitimacy and impact. Equality and diversity are only effective and sustainable if the board works to be inclusive, ensuring all trustees are welcomed, valued and able to contribute. How important is all of that? Absolutely. I know that on my board, the board here at Expert Link, we have 90% lived experience. I'm really, really proud of that. And absolutely, they're a great bunch of individuals who come together to make a fantastic team that help us go in the right direction. And I think that's really, really important, you know. Again, having that diversity and that lived experience sat at the very top, if you like, of that hierarchical system, deciding on strategies and the policies and the directions of organisation. That's what inclusivity and diversity means for me, is having all of that experience sat around at the right places, being involved in making the decisions around policies, about delivery of services, etc., that have an impact on other people. Whew, God, that was a lot, wasn't it? Okay, so that's enough from me. for sure. I'm going to put a couple of links down below. I'd love to hear your comments. If you think, if this is a subject that's really important to you, I know governance is important to me. Put it in the comments, and maybe we'll start to have more conversations around governance, a conversation between me and you, or Expert Link and the people that our network and you guys. We can have conversations. Absolutely, just put it in the comment. Also, please like and subscribe to the channel if you like the video, because it helps those algorithms. But until next time, I love you all. Stay safe.
Don't give up. Don't give up. No matter what.